game they play, 1,000 miles of sadness. I can be with you wherever, stay at home or in a foreign land. I can stay like this forever.
Hey guys, my name's Richie. Thanks for clicking on this video. What it's pretty much going to be about is nature. So wildlife, landscapes, just nature in general, going out and seeing it as it is. And that's what I love to do. So we'll bring you along for that, and we'll try to get footage and video of everything we see. We're going to be going out to far Western Queensland. It's about a 14-hour drive to where we really want to slow down and start looking. But we'll probably get about 6 or 8 hours just out of the way of that drive today. My son Noah's going to be coming along with me, so I have to go pick him up. He loves coming on trips. This isn't his first one, but it'll be his first one out to this area, which is one of my favourite spots. So that's going to be really cool. Car's packed, ready to go. We'll get what we can and we'll share it with you. Thanks again for clicking on the video. Alright, we've just pulled up for a little shingle back, but he's not moving and he's looking a little flat, so please be alive. He's looking back, his back legs are back. Are you alive, little buddy? All the way out here on the side of the road. Little girl, but oh yes, hello, little girl. Hello little girl, what are you doing sitting over here? You're just catching the sun, are you? Oh, it's a bit of a cool windy day. That's nice and warm there. I'm so glad you're sitting here and not up on the road. Come on, it's alright. It's okay. Come on. Look at you. It's springtime, so where's your boyfriend? Usually two of you together this time of year. That's alright, no one's going to hurt you. I am going to move you a bit further away from the road though. Okay, yes, this is actually one of my favorite lizards. Absolutely love these guys. In the springtime it's not unusual to see a couple of these together, and there was a study done on these by a Professor Mike Bull, who unfortunately has passed away, but he is down in South Australia, and he found out that these lizards are monogamous, which I think might have been the first time they found out lizards could really be like that. So they meet up in the springtime, and the males will follow the females around. They'll hang out together for the breeding season, and then they go their separate ways, but they meet up year after year, the same pair, and they've been recorded to meet up for over a decade, possibly even longer than that. Alright little girl, you're a little bit upset. We'll move you away from the road. And you know what you need to do? Stay away from the road. There you go. There you go. So we didn't see a whole lot today. We saw a shingleback, which was cool. We saw the usual emus and kangaroos and wedge-tailed eagles, but not as many as usual. So I hope that's not a sign of things. We're at an escarpment now, so we're just going to have some dinner. We're going to sleep. So most of our big part of our driving's out of the way. Tomorrow we can start poking around looking for things. And before we go to bed, we might even have a bit of a look at the escarpment tonight. But it is a bit cool, so I'm not expecting much to be out. But anyway, we see something cool, we will show you. Other than that, tomorrow we'll start to be seriously looking around for stuff, and hopefully we have some luck in seeing some cool stuff. Alright, so this morning we've just gotten up and we're just cruising these plains, having a look around for an Inland Taipan. Anyone that's ever looked for them knows that you spend literally hours just driving around, looking out for a snake, basking on the ground. First reptile for the day, this little bearded dragon here, central bearded dragon, is just getting some sun. You can see how relaxed it is with its back legs there, like it's just flat out just trying to because there is a cool breeze, but that'll work in our favour because it'll stop it from getting too hot too soon, which sends the snakes underground. So yeah, we'll keep driving around having a look. Sure if you can see that out there, but that's a little willy dust cloud going on, and I literally was just about to cook lunch and we got smashed by it right here. I was in the middle of it, dust over everything, but that's all good.
Said, if you give love, you get love in return. If you only knew you had.
Okay, so in here we've got a shed skin of a snake. It looks like it's pretty intact. Yep, oh, there's his uric. Oh wow. Oh wow, that's a Blackhead Python, I think. Yep, I can see the bands on it. You can see the bands faintly on that. You can see the smaller belly scales and the high number of mid body rows there. And we've actually got the head as well. There we go. That's a black-headed python. Turn his little head inside out so we can get a better look. There we go. That is a nice complete shed of a black-headed python. And you know what? I've never actually seen one of them around here. I've heard of people finding a couple around here, but never seen one here myself. Not at this spot. So that's quite interesting. That's a good shed too. Well, it'd be a whole lot better if we saw the actual snake, but I'm still pretty happy with that.
If you only knew you had so many bridges left to burn. You put your trust in all that we're. You measure all in what you own. You don't worry about your health, but you do.
Oh boy, am I excited, I can't believe it. I've been coming out to Western Queensland in the hope to see an Inland Taipan out here for off and on for over 20 years. I've seen them in South Australia because I gave up over here, but this is still one of my favourite areas. We've just been cruising along slowly this morning and there is one sitting on the road up here ahead of me. You want to get a shot of that before it moves. It's basking. You can see the darker head on it. That's 100% an Inland Taipan. We haven't even got out of the car yet. So let's back up a bit. There's no cars coming. And I'm just going to sneak around behind it quietly so it doesn't feel threatened. So hopefully we can just sneak up behind him and then have a nice look before he tries to reel off the road. He's having a good bask there. Oh man, that gets the heart racing. So what I'll try to do is we'll try to come around the back of him slowly, and I'll go the other side and we'll see if we can get a nice shot of him. Western Queensland one. So this for me is something real special. And this is actually an area where an old friend of mine who unfortunately passed away now, Jeanette Kabakevich, who actually was amongst the first trip to come out here and rediscover them. And this is the spot where she told me where they rediscovered them. In fact, it was out here when they first came out, they found a roadkill, and that's when they knew they'd rediscovered them. But I'll go over that story a bit more later on. Let's look at the snake. See him slowly start to sneak off there. Have a look at that. Oh, he's picking up a little bit of speed. He's got his neck up a little bit. A little bit concerned, that's fair enough. He's stepping out in the open. Alright guys, we're out in far western Queensland, and this morning we saw an inland taipan. So I'll show you that footage firstly, but I think it's good to go over a bit of the history of it, and also that history was told to me firsthand from Jeanette Kabakevich, who was on the trip where they rediscovered the inland taipan. Unfortunately, she's passed away now. She was a mentor of mine and a friend, so that's, you know, you could always learn stuff from that woman. She knew so much about snakes. But she got to tell us of this story, and so now I can only pass on what I can remember secondhand, but it's a good story. And that is that the original couple of specimens for the inland taipan were collected in northern Victoria, or so the locality data says. A couple decades later, another one from southern New South Wales. We now know that it's probable that they never came from there. The habitat's not right. It's more than likely that they were mislabeled, and that's not where they came from. So all these years went by, almost 100 years, and Jeanette was working at the Queensland Museum, and the head of a snake was sent into her from a grazier from out here, so a cattle farmer. And when she looked at it, she couldn't work out what snake it was, what it belonged to. And she went back to the older literature and she found this snake which had just kind of disappeared. And she realized that she was looking at this snake, the same one where there's a couple of specimens found almost 100 years ago. So they organised a trip to come out here, and when I say they, it was with the late Charles Tanner, another well-known Australian herpetologist. And they headed out here, and on arrival in the late afternoon, they found a roadkill. So straight away, they had located and rediscovered what then later became the inland taipan. Over those coming 10 days, they found 13 snakes. And I don't know if it was just a great year or what's changed. And it's almost 50 years ago now, but you don't see that many out here. You're lucky to see a couple. In fact, you're lucky to see one. I've been coming out here for a long time, and I even gave up looking around here. I went to South Australia where they're kind of easier to see and find one out there. But this is one of my favourite spots. I love coming out here. And this morning that finally happened. I got to see a Western Queensland one at this historical site, which my friend Jeanette had told me about, so that's kind of special. So anyway, after they got those ones, it was actually then they realised they were a type of taipan, and they were reclassified and became the inland taipan. There's a few other names thrown around back in the day too, but that's the name that probably suits them the best now, as far as common names go. So this is it. This is the historical area. You can see it's just a big plain. It's pretty hot out here in the middle of the day, where the inland taipan was rediscovered. I think that's a good story. There's a whole lot of other things you hear about them, and their natural history out here is unreal as well. They just live in these burrows and the labyrinth of cracks in the soils. But yeah, I guess a lot of the focus sometimes on them is that they're arguably the most venomous snake in the world. But I think their natural history is very interesting, the way they live out here and just how they disappeared for so long and then were rediscovered.
So over here we just got a bearded dragon that was just about to bask right on the road, and there's been a lot of cars driving by recently, so we're just going to try and move them away. He's a bit angry.
Fear being left alone. You may double your guards, but no one really knows about your house of cards that the wind blows.
So in here you can see we've got 5 dead macropods. What's happened here is they've come up into the cave to escape the heat if it was summer, or to escape the cold if it was winter, and also to escape predators or anything that might bother them, because they've come up here to pass on. They've been sick, old, and they just don't want to be disturbed when they go through that. I've seen this with wildlife or macropods, kangaroos back on the coast when they're sick and injured, just find a quiet place sometimes. So in here you can see we've got 5 dead macropods. What's happened here is they've come up into the cave to escape the heat if it was summer, or to escape the cold if it was winter, and also to escape predators or anything that might bother them, because they've come up here to pass on. They've been sick, old, and they just don't want to be disturbed when they go through that. I've seen this with wildlife or macropods, kangaroos back on the coast when they're sick and injured, just find a quiet place, sometimes even around human habitation, to just check out. So that's what's happened here. You've got 5 of them. You don't normally see that many in a cave, but it is a pretty good cave, this one. It also goes right back in there, and I've been in there before, and there's microbats and a few little critters in there, but I'm not going to go in there today, because once you start getting sweaty and you try to climb through all that dust and there's all these dead animals in here, it's all going to stick to you. So I'm going to give that a pass. But you can also see parenti tracks, and also this fella over here looks like he's been chewed on, so it was probably a parenti or maybe a dingo has come up here at some point and had a bit of a chew. But most of these others are pretty much untouched. They're kind of just mummified, so they've just come up here to pass. I used to think that the parentis used to drag stuff up into the escarpments to eat it, like as a parenti lair, and I know some other people used to think that too, but pretty much these animals come up here of their own accord just to pass. There's Noah under all these sticks.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's not fun. Oh, explain in the morning. So last night we didn't actually film it because we weren't quite sure how much we may or may not be in spot of bother. But it's very easy to get lost at night around here. And we took off with just our head torches and the camera, although we didn't really film anything. And as we followed the escarpment along, got a break in the escarpment, ended up on the flat country, and before we realised we were up there, we thought we were between the escarpments, so we just plodded along, and then we realised we were up there, we'd lost direction. And there's nothing to go on out there, nothing at all. So we pretty much spent the night laying on the ground, getting absolutely smashed by mosquitoes. We had 9 hours to kill until sunrise. We broke off some branches and covered ourselves, but these things are just nimbly little sticks with tiniest of leaves, mosquitoes just all over us. We're only wearing shorts and t-shirts. The bag I had the camera in, I just wore that over my head. And then when we got up this morning with sunrise, we still didn't really film anything because we didn't know which way we were going. we only had suspicions. We heard a road train in the distance last night. We thought we could see an escarpment in the distance in the moonlight, but every time you moved towards it, it felt like it was just the trees, which are just a bit in the distance. It was the longest night, laying on the ground, smashed by mozzies, and then in the last couple of hours, just shivering. Got a little cold. We're just sitting in the car now with the heater on. A couple of times before we left, I meant to stop in and grab a GPS and have a GPS, and boy did I regret it last night. And I've known of other people who've done it out here. I've known of friends that have had to sleep in the caves at night because they couldn't find their way out. I know of a few people which have done it, and although I've almost done it before, and the first couple of nights we took it real easy, last night fell for it and it happened. So I think I'm like the third lot of people that I've known which have ended up sleeping out here because you didn't make it back. These days with devices like GPSs, we should really know better, and I think I'll definitely be investing in one. So we're going to go to town, we're going to get a room, we're going to wash ourselves so many muzzy bites, and have a bit of a sleep and maybe have something to eat because we didn't have dinner last night either. So a little bit of recovery for now, and then we'll get back into it later on. But a good lesson learned, and luckily we found our way back in the right direction all right once it was daylight, because it's probably going to be a pretty warm day and we didn't have any water or anything either. So yeah, a bit of a lesson learnt, fully learnt this time, not just almost learnt. And normally there's no mozzies around, but because there's been a bit of rain, they were here. So it's starting to warm up around here, and we're starting to see a few more of the lizards poke their head up. It had been pretty quiet until now. We've got a bit of dragon on the back of this fallen termite mound here, and she's just dropped down and lowered her profile because she's seen the car pull up, and we haven't walked directly at her, so she's just sitting there comfortably. And as long as we hang back, that's exactly what she'll do.
And it's time to set it straight. No more talk about your fast life. If you want it, then you have to wait. I see your every flaw. I see your home made out of straw while the wind blows.
All I can see is just about my shadow.
What's the mountain we climbed?
Huh? Yes. Yeah, we flew right over there.
Yeah, nice.
And there's a shadow of Jono and his dreads. And his echoey Ken laugh.
Oh no, you cannot change. Yeah, you can change your ways. A secret well kept, but everyone knows. You try to keep it so still, but the wind blows. Oh, the wild wind blows.
This is a real shame. Look at the size of this yellow spotted miner, Varanus panoptes. He was a whopper. Normally when we come out here we'd see about 6 or 7 of these, and so far this is the first one. So that's a little bit disappointing, but it's been very light on everywhere out in this trip. There hasn't been as many kangaroos as you'd normally see, as many emus, as many wedge-tailed eagles, black kites or anything. I'm not quite sure why that is. You'd expect to see a lot more. Things do fluctuate over the years, and there has been some rain, there's a lot of green around, so maybe things are dispersed more, and maybe the eagles, which would be feeding off the dead kangaroos on the side of the road and things like that, are more dispersed. Or maybe because the year before there was a big drought and things were really dry. Certainly found a lot of dead animals up in the escarpments and stuff, more than normal. So I don't really know why things are so light on this trip, but it's a real shame to see this guy who's only been hit this morning, and we haven't even seen a live one yet. He was a big lizard. What a shame. He would have been out there for quite a few years wandering these plains. Little fairy martin birds, usually out in the bush, they'll use escarpments and things like that to build their mud nests under, but they'll also utilise things which people have built. And in this case, this shelter here, this little stand, the fairy martins have not held back. There are mud nests, just chockers under here. If you're so busy in breeding season, real estate's pretty tight.
Sometimes we act like a fool, not aware we're troublemakers. Sometimes we try to be cool, not being givers, only takers. Stop for a minute, stop and breathe for a minute. Don't get over your head, try to listen instead, won't you?
Okay, so you can see we've got a sun about to go down. There's actually only one sun, so I don't know why it's the sun, but anyway. So we're on the Mitchell Grass Downs, which is a pretty open, barren place, but we're here for a reason. We're looking for one of my favourite lizards. We got here late this afternoon. We saw a few bearded dragons moving around this afternoon, getting the late sun, so that means there's a bit of activity. So fingers crossed for in the morning. I'm not overly optimistic. The last few days have been a bit quiet. A lot of the common stuff has just started moving around, and a few more of the birds and things. We've just started seeing that today, and the sun's just about down. So we've been pretty light on goannas for this trip, but we've just got a big yellow spotted monitor here just crossing the road. Getting into the late afternoon, he's getting the last little bit of sun. Hey mate, hello, hi. You want to check out the camera? Hey. Hey buddy. Hello. How's that? He literally came up and said hello to us in the camera. That was pretty cool. We just walked him around for a while until he got used to our presence, and then he come up and said g'day. Oh, it looks like he's been having a feed over here too. Okay, so just spent the morning looking for yellow-footed rock wallabies. It started off real well because we saw one go down the rocks real quick right from the start of the track near where we'd parked the car. Then we went for a good old hike for over an hour without seeing one more rock wallaby. So that was a bit of a worry. It didn't look like we were going to have much success. And then we came back and worked that same area, and by the time we worked that, I've counted with Noah up to 14 rock wallabies. Pretty much most of those rock wallabies were all just hopping away, and you saw the tail end of them and just going across the escarpment in amongst the trees, and you didn't get a real great look at them. Noah kind of got a bit of a picture from the distance. How'd you go? Did you see any more? No more? At one point I stumbled on four. Four took off down the escarpment at one time. But they all just bailed, and then I sneaked along, so that brought us up to like 13 we'd seen, and I sneaked along, and then a little quiet one came out, and I actually got about 3 seconds of footage of it, so I got to see it. So what we'll do is we'll show you that footage now. Okay, so I'm super stoked that I finally got to see some yellow-footed rock wallabies in the wild. It's been on my list for a long time and just never taken the detour and the time to actually do it. We saw about 14 in the end, so I'm really happy with that. Got a good look at a few of them. Got a little bit of video of that one. There are subspecies here in Queensland, so even if you see them in South Australia where they're more common and better known, you're looking at a different subspecies. So I'm really happy to see the Queensland ones.